Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural year of the Jon Fredric West Vocal Academy. I can't tell you how happy I am to see you all here so numerous. We wanted to wait to welcome in as many of you as possible. This has been a dream for about a year now, that Jon, my mentor, my friend, a great artist, a great human being, and I'm very honored to say, my adopted grandfather. We've dreamed of this for a very long time. Tonight is a celebration of the human voice, and I can't think of anyone more aptly suited to the role of ushering you through this journey tonight than Jon Fredric West. He had no opera singer could have a more stellar career than he had. He sang for 50 years in repertoire ranging from the Italian lyric roles in his youth all the way to the most demanding, spiritually, artistically, and technically demanding roles in the Wagnerian repertoire. He conquered the stages of the Metropolitan Opera, the Covent Garden, La Scala, Vienna Opera, Paris Opera. I could go on and on. Internationally, he sang gloriously and movingly under the baton of the greatest conductors of his generation, Simon Rattle, Lauren Mazel, Eugene Ormandy, James Conlon, Zubin Mehta, and with almost every major symphony orchestra internationally. But most of all, during his whole career, he always got standing ovations from his adoring public, who felt his warmth, his sincerity, his intrinsic understanding that opera is about passion and about communicating truth. This is what we hope to bring to you tonight with this academy. I started working with Jon about a year ago, and it was an epiphany for me. I wanted to bring this to other students, and also to all of you, each and every one of you here this evening. It's going to be a fantastic event. First, I'm going to sing a few little numbers for you with my father, the master pianist, Aria, and then we're welcoming 3 phenomenal young artists who were such great troopers. They came from different parts of the country and underwent intensive lectures, individual coaching, all to prepare this evening for you all tonight. And last but not least, I don't want anybody to be shy, even the very young among us. We're going to have a question and answer session, so any question that you've been dying to know about the magical world of opera, you ask them. So without further ado, I present to you the great artist, the great human being, Jon Fredric West.
Thank you. Well, at first I'm tempted to say, who's that she's talking about? I have no idea. Well, it's kind of the interesting thing about what we do, because there's always 2 of us. There's that man or woman that does this thing professionally and comes on a path that is divinely, in my opinion, divinely inspired. And we hook up to that much like turning a light bulb on. But when that light bulb is off, we are just regular folks. I'm a boy from Dayton, Ohio. My father was a A&P store manager, and later he became a salt salesman, and my mother was a 3rd grade teacher. So this is a dream for me, because I have always wanted to teach in my later years, and I have been doing just that. But on this level, I sort of thought, well, I don't know, there's so many reasons not to push this, and I live in Utica now, and so on and so forth, and then Celine comes into my life, and she gives me a good swift kick, and says, you're not done, you're not even old, and you're going to do this. And so we have, and it's been a joy. This is our inaugural time, and normally we have a 2 to 3 week kind of situation where we work very hard and intensely, and then do this at the end. This literally is the, let's see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we have had a vocal lecture, we have had a career lecture, we have had a medicine lecture, because it's very important that singers know what they should and should not take to help them when push comes to shove and they're singing a lot. And then after that, we've had vocal lessons. Now, at this point, each one of these young people really have an amazing ability in this dramatic, Wagnerian, dramatic Italian repertoire. So we're extremely lucky. So Solène is the unusual one as a lyric coloratura, but everybody else is in more of my field of the repertoire. Nonetheless, it is a process. You do not climb Mount Everest in one climb. You learn, you graduate, you go up another level, and of course it has to be taught by people that actually were there. And this is the largest problem in our field today. The people that are often teaching didn't get there. And so they teach things that really perhaps are not applicable. So I'm pleased that Solène pushed me to do this, because I was there, I heard these voices from top to bottom, lightest to heaviest, and that makes me very happy to realize that I can give something to all of these people, and that's what I'm going to do. So we keep doing, we're going to build, we're going to hopefully have one in New York, we're always going to have one here, and every year, and go from there. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to you, and you're going to have so much fun hearing this Contori. It is such a fun aria. It's such a silly little aria, but it's so fun. But before I do, I want us to give the Levans a big hand, because without this, help and their generosity, this would not have happened this summer. And so that is a tremendous thing to open your home. Even if I am an adopted grandfather, it is a tremendous thing to open your home and do this as a calling and as a business. So, all right, you're on.
Well, the first song that I'm going to sing for you expresses exactly what I feel towards each and every one of you. It's called Let My Song Fill Your Heart. But mostly, I also want to dedicate it to my parents, my father Eric, my mother Myriam, because it was their wedding anniversary, 29 years of marriage yesterday.
You're 34.
Right. Exactly. Yes, indeed. So to all the couples out there, this is for you, and especially for my parents. Let my song fill your heart.
Supreme, it's enchanting, it's alive. Let my
listening to Rossini. And this is a silly number. It's about a countess. Her name is Adele. And she's struck with melancholia. And so what does she do? A hermit comes to her castle, offering her a cure for her melancholia. What she doesn't know is that this is a hermit. This is a count who's in love with her, who's dressed as a female hermit in order to deceive her into loving him, as if that's going to work. But he proposes that the solution to her troubles is to fall in love. And so she does, not with the count, but with his page. Classic Rossini. So in the first half of this aria, I am afflicted by sadness and grief, and in the second part, I am overjoyed because I am in love. En proie de la tristesse by Rossini.
See
the great pleasure to introduce Sarah Heitman, dramatic soprano. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, before we commence to begin, let me just say, this is a performance masterclass. This is not a working masterclass like the kind that Callas might have done at Juilliard. I wanted them to have a performance, first of all. We've done a lot of work, and so at this point, what we will see is, are we doing the things that we've talked about? And that's the most important aspect. There is an order to this thing called singing, and it's very specific and very definite, and it's rarely understood in today's world. So, luckily, these young people do, and they're wonderful, and now I hand it over to you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Heitman, and I would like to sing for you Du bist der Lenz. You are the springtime that I longed for. It's Sieglinda's Aria, expressing all her newfound love to Siegmund.
What do you think? Would you rather do the next piece and then we'll talk? Rather than talk each one? No, it's up to you, tell me.
I would like to do whatever you say.
No, I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay, let's work on this one then.
Okay, good, excellent. I have really very little to say except Blüte.
I knew it, I tried. I knew how to do it.
There's a specific sound to the German umlaut, bleu, and it's unusual for us as Americans to be able to find that sound, but it always has this hole in the center of our mouth, bleu, and so it's one of those that takes a while to do, but we continue to get it, and eventually it will come. Now, how do we handle nerves? Because I felt. Now, tell me, I'm asking you, did you feel that you were a tad nervous at the beginning?
I tried to hide it the best I could.
Yes, but you, so in other words, you're saying you were?
Yes.
Yes. It's really hard for us to learn to handle nerves. And the tendency is that all of us, and including myself, oversing. We bear down on the character and we're going to... Or we don't quite get our voice rounded. And therein lies the trick of our profession. The lie that is being taught today is this. Ha, which makes a mosquito-like sound, as Tibaldi used to call it. And we have, as a result, a lot of small voices on stage that you cannot hear, and that have many different sounds to their registers. There's only 2 registers that the soprano ought to have, that the great sopranos were taught, chest and head. That's it. No more. You can get a blend, but that's finer work. So we tend to want to and which gives us, when we find the vertical position as opposed to the horizontal position, it gives our tone more overtone. And that's what carries our voice. So you can use a very soft tone, but if it says so the only slight criticism for improvement would be at the very beginning, down. Okay? So du bist der Lenz, rather than du bist der Lenz. Okay? So now that you've gotten the nerves out, why do we do that first couple pages now and go more for the vertical, like you did after that first couple pages? You did from then on, and it was absolutely spectacular. Okay. So now, du bist der Lenz. Good. Did we believe, and I'm asking all of you, did we believe that she was speaking passionately and lovingly to her well, it's not really a half-brother, it's a brother, but they're gods, and they both have the eye of the snake. So there's not really that strange question that we would be repulsed by in this character. So did we feel that? Good. Excellent. All right. Yes, please. Let me know by your applause. Excellent. Good. Then all of that, see, is going right.
Okay.
So just now, right. Let's try it again. Now, just the first couple pages. That's the difference. It becomes more organ-like. It becomes more cello, viola, rather than a brass instrument. Now, yet we do have to smile on stage for sure. But you see, it's what we call the zygomatic expression. We get the skin off this little bone that's back here called the zygote. And so it's always like, hi, how are you? You see? So it's up like this, but vertical like that. So, hi, how are you? Oh, it's great to see you. I'm glad you came by for hamburgers. Good. Let's enjoy. Steak. Okay, steak. How about sushi? So, that's extent. That's extent. And of course, had you been in an opera, you would have already worked out those nerves and felt the direction you needed to go in. Your voice would have told you. So excellent, excellent. Okay, let's move on to the Ariadne. Beautiful work, this Ariadne.
Ariadne has been abandoned by her lover, Theseus. And she is longing to die. And she's suffering, she's in extreme pain and suffering because she's been abandoned. And she's longing to die, and she's ready to die, and she's getting ready to release herself from the pain of living. And it sounds very happy, but she's excited about death, so enjoy, please. Thank you.
Theme running here.
This is something you could die for.
You're so jealous as a tenor to hear these magnificent melodies given to the soprano that Strauss wrote. And then he would sit there listening to his good friend Julius Patzak, a great tenor, and they played cards together regularly. And Patzak would be singing, and Strauss would say, "Oh, isn't that the worst thing you've ever heard? It's a tenor. Oh, I can't stand it. Oh, my God." And so he'd give us these incredibly difficult sounds or cruel parts. Some of them are great parts, like Apollo, or Bacchus has its moments, but not much. And Midas in Liebe der Danae, and it's fabulous writing, but incredibly cruel, incredibly high, incredibly difficult. And I'm so jealous when I hear you and Debbie Voigt sing these incredible melodies that are so beautiful. So beautiful. It's hard to believe that we're talking about death here, and yes, bring it on, because I'm going to die for that one fellow that I love so much. And over here is Zerbinetta, and she says, "Excuse me, but if you can't have the one you want, why don't you have the one you're with?" And so there's an entirely different philosophy of what love is here. And that's one of the beautiful things about opera in general, but about Strauss. What is love? Where does it come from? How does it react? And that's a beautiful thing, and we get a chance to examine it very well. Okay, very good. Basically, all I would look, you got through the end, that beginning just beautifully, and didn't have any problem with it at all. How about the end? I'd like to hear you have more space. I need more of that slancho into that. And you see, the voice is perverse. We have this thing that it says, I've got to release the voice, but to release it well, we have to inhabit this tenet called inhalare la voce, to inhale the voice. So as it goes around and rounds out, then we have this inward feeling that it goes back and up in the neck. That's why singers and teachers say so badly, they say, oh, just sing like you speak. Well, excuse me, we speak like this. How do you expect to speak like this and be heard at the Metropolitan Opera, which is 3,800 seats? It ain't gonna happen, folks. So what we need to do is understand that what the Greeks on up were talking about speaking was projected speech. And that projection can only occur if we have that feeling of roundness. Caruso, the great tenor, Enrico Caruso, always talked about the resonance in the back of the neck, the nuca. And that feeling of, that our own microphone is in the pharynx. And we have to get out of the way of that pharynx. We have to open the back of our throat, which is much the feeling of the beginning of the yawn, and allow the tone to feel that quality, rather than which is being taught today. So, beautiful. You did that so beautifully. Now let's go to the do nim es von mir. Okay, can we do that again?
Yes.
No? Good. Okay. Have at it. Now go very good. Du nimmst von mir, not ir. That when we doubt and we think we should go forward, 95% of the time we should go back here. That relaxes the voice. That gives us the roundness of the tone. Bright forward is a false concept that has been pushed by certain singers who shall be nameless at this point, that they were very famous, but unfortunately they were wrong. They might have been right for their voice. There's always exceptions that prove the rule. But as a general mechanism to learn to sing, they were wrong. And it has hurt our business in the voice teaching ever since. Round, open throat is where it's at. And then we get sounds like Ponsell made, Callas in her prime, Leonard Warren, Richard Tucker, Corelli, you name it. And those are what Solène did here. Those are the sounds that give us that ability. And that's the place that it comes from. Where does the voice come from? The larynx. At end of story. What does the larynx need to do? It needs to float downward. How does that happen? I'm not forcing it down. You don't have to force the larynx down. All you do is have to open your mouth and it goes down automatically. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, now we have our budding dramatische Heldentenor that I can say is now going to begin to inherit me, my mantle with mein Heldensohn. So, Shaun.
Good evening, all. Again, my name is Shaun McGrath, and I will be singing for you Dünkt dich das from Richard Wagner's Tristan und Isolde. This is a wonderful little ditty. It's a happy little tune about a man who is gravely injured. He was just previously stabbed through the chest in an attempt to throw away his life in the previous act. And now he has just regained consciousness and is starting to recall some of the visions of death's door closing and finally finding happiness in night, only to be awakened and to rediscover his love for the love of his life, Isolde. welchem Ahnung nenn ich dich den neuen Licht des Tags mich zu getrieben. Was einzig mir geblieben, ein heiß inbrünstig Lieben, aus Todeswonne grauen, jagst mir das Glück zu schauen, das Rügen hell und golden noch mehr ist alle scheint. Ist alle Nacht im Reich der Sonne, im Tagesschimmer noch ist alle. Welches Sehnen, welches Bangen, sie zu sehen, zu welch Verlangen, krachend hört ich hinter mir, schön des Todes Tor sich schließen, weit nun steht es wieder offen, der Sonne strahlen, schreit es auf mit hell geschlossenen Augen, muss sich der Nacht ins Tauchen, sie zu suchen, sie zu sehen, sie zu finden, in der einzig zu vergehen, zu entschwinden, Tristan ist bergend. Hin und wegs, bleich und bang, mir des Tages wilden Drang, grell und stolz sein Gestirn, Weg zu Trug und banges Hirn. Wenn Furcht der Tag mit deinem Schein, wagst du hin, Weg meiner Pein, rennst du ewig diese Leuchte, die selbst nachts von mir mich scheuchte. Ach, es alles ist Hölle, wann endlich wann, ach, wann löschest du die Sünde, dass sie mein Glück mir kinde, das Licht, wann löscht es aus? Wird es Nacht im Haus?
Thanks. Shaun just got this like a month ago, where they said, "Can you learn this in 2 months?" Duh. I mean, I started working on this in 1987. I didn't perform until 96. Okay, that's how hard it is. The first couple of times I sang through the third act, And this is only the first aria of the third act. It goes on and on and on. Wagner was very nice to women. He gave the ladies the hardest act in Act 1. He made us wait for our hardship until Act 3. And man, did he lay it on us. The better we do this, the more depressed we make the audience. And then in walks Isolde with milk and delight. And she walks off with the show. And here we are, so depressed we can't see straight. Like we don't even want to get up for 2 days. So that's one of the reasons I stopped doing this role in 2009, because I really did. It just took too much toll out of me. So
Sorry. I'm bringing it back.
No, I love to hear it. That was so beautiful in what you did on the mezzo voce, because this is the key. Many of you, I'm sure, think of Wagner as loud, louder, and loudest. And it is simply not true. There are more soft markings in Wagner than there are in Verdi. In point of fact, and Verdi often wrote soft markings, but he wrote it to knock a singer over the head with, like, Mr. Tamagno, you don't have to sing double forte all the time. So he'd write 7 pianos, pianissimi, just to get the idea to Tamagno that he could do something less than loud. But Wagner really wrote bel canto, especially in his mature writing. It's just that he was a Saxon and once that philosophy, if you can say something in 10 words, why not say it in 1,000? So that's the problem with Wagner. He just went on and never heard the word cut. But when Shaun sings it like that mezzo voce is so delicious, because that's the whole point. He's talking about night. And what does that night mean? Death. That's what it means. Because this love is now illicit love, although it occurred before the opera ever opened up and was not illicit. But at this point, it is now illicit because he went back to get Isolde from what in his mind was a summer romance, and he was going to prove to his uncle he was very loyal and get him a goyle to have a kid. So he goes back and he picks up Isolde. Well, Isolde was in love with Tristan, and she's madder than heck, and she's not going to take it anymore. So she is ready to kill them with this death drink, this Liebestrank, Todestrank. And finally, Tristan kind of gets it and says, I made a mistake here, didn't I? Okay, I'll drink it. But what they don't know is the handmaiden of Isolde has substituted a love potion. Now, they've already been in love, so how does that work? Well, most of us interpret it that drinking the love potion allows them to flaunt society and flaunt convention. And therefore, they can go ahead and have this love that is now illicit. But to do it, it has to be at night, which becomes their day. In other words, death, night, is the only place they can live and have day. Hence, the philosophies that have come down and the arguments where Mr. Vickers, the great Tristan of the 20th century, one of them, really was against this opera because he felt it was so immoral to say that we have to die to live, etc., etc. Well, there's no way we can ever solve this argument. It's an ongoing discussion and will never be solved. But what we can say is Wagner created something so unique. Most of these things had been done before. The so-called Tristan chord had actually gone back to Haydn. Haydn did it. Beethoven did it. Schubert did it. But Wagner took all these disparate things that had been done and put them all together in this package and called it Gesamtkunstwerke, whole artwork. And so that's what Tristan is about. And it is about longing, Sehnsucht. And it never is fulfilled. Every time we get close to fulfillment, it goes away. Every time. Because in truth, it doesn't matter that Tristan sees Isolde. it's not important. He probably doesn't even know at the very end that that is really Isolde. Why? Because when Courvenal says the ship is there, Tristan looks out here and says, the ship. He's already in death. He's already in a place where he sees and feels Isolde. So, Shaun, now the only thing I want you to do is to slow that sucker down at Nenn ich dich. You went right for it, and it's a slow build. Nenn ich dich in neuem Licht des Tags mich zugetrieben. Bam, 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 bam. Here, look. Was einzig mir geblieben, mein Reich in Prinzip liegen. Yeah, then we can go fast.
Okay.
See,
But I felt like I somehow got off of the ensemble.
right, you just started going fast. See?
Yeah.
And that's the key, because it's always this way. It's always almost like we're in mud, and then we start to go, oh no, you can't go that fast. And then we get that expression, when Isolde comes. And here's our point about acting this. You can act it very well if you realize that every time you bring up the name Isolde, Isolde. Isolde not! Isolde kommt! So it always has to have this moment of beauty to the final statement of Isolde. Yeah. So that's all I really need for you to feel, is how that builds. Otherwise, you did very beautifully. I love the Isolde. Again, don't make us think you might be angry. Shine. Yeah, that's a little too warrior. Shine. Yeah, see with that happy. Shine. That's it. Yeah. There it is. There she is. Oh my God. She shine. Strahlen. Die strahlende Haar. Strahlendes Licht. Strahlkraft is this light and this beauty. And every time, it's always about that. But then you say, but this is wie, nun wächst, bleich und bang. It's bleached out, it's pale, it has nothing, because it's not Isolde. This is nothing, there is Isolde. See? So it's always that juxtaposition that we're working with. See?
I feel bipolar.
And this we are, particularly. Good, all right, I don't think we need to, you just did that.
Okay.
So we're on to the happy boy.
Yeah.
The happy boy, finally.
I thought I would to sing for all of us to get us out of the funk that Tristan is in. I thought I would sing the Schmiedeslied, from Siegfried. This is a wonderful little portion of Siegfried where Siegfried has been tasked with trying to find a way to find fear, and his parental figure, Myriam, has decreed that there is a dragon named Fafnir that needs to be slain, and if you slay, and if you face and slay this dragon, you will find fear. So, as fearless as Siegfried is, he's off to go smelt his sword named Notum, be gifted to him from Wotan through Sigmund. Now Siegfried has it.
And what does Notum mean?
Oh, shit. One thing I didn't want.
Needful.
Needful.
What do you need? Notum.
Alright. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, please. so early. But of course you have to, the question is, where are great basses? Well, the first answer is actually you have to be a bass, not a baritone who's forcing his voice to be thick and low. So you have to be right for this repertoire, and Shaun is only 32, I believe?
31.
31. So this is a baby as far as Wagner goes. And we now have a decade where we come up the ranks, and he'll be doing a lot of first coverings and understanding, and little by little, and then singing these roles at smaller opera companies, preferably in Germany, and getting the real understanding. And then we hit 40, 42, and the voice kind of grows up. And if we've been doing it right, we have a precious 15 years where we can do no wrong for a while. And then, of course, we get old. So then it's a different ballpark entirely. So then we have to almost do just the opposite to keep singing. So I was very pleased, Shaun, very pleased with what you did. We've worked very hard on this, and we're just doing great, and we're at the beginning now. We're really at base camp for Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
And so we now keep working on this. Again, you see how beautiful when we approach Wagner lyrically. Not when we always punch. Karajan himself said, always go as lyric as you can for as long as you can. And that's the key to great Wagner. Wagner singing, and this is one of the greatest Italian tenors of all time, dramatic tenor, Mario del Monaco, had his largest failure when he sang in Stuttgart, and he sang Wagner. And because he had it in his mind that this was loud, louder, and loudest. So he just was wailing away at the top of his lungs, and 20 minutes in, he was already singing like this, so he could get as much power, and it was completely wrong and completely unnecessary. And to this day in Stuttgart, we all know that that was the big failure of Mario's career. Because he hadn't coached it, he hadn't trained on it, he didn't understand that this was not about loud singing all the time. So, anyway, excellent, my friend. So, I think we
have refreshments. Don't go away. We have one more wonderful young artist singing for us, and then our question and answer session. But please enjoy the refreshments. We'll break for about 15 minutes and then reconvene. Thank you all.
So we have Nan, a really beautiful, budding, dramatic soprano that also has tremendous high ability. So we have yet to completely figure out exactly what she can do, because she can do a lot. We did Tosca the other day, and now you're going to do Dich teure Halle of Tannhäuser's first aria, and then Pace Pace. So some very interesting. So take it away, then.
Well, the character that I'll be singing for today is Elizabeth, and she just found out that the love of her life has returned to her, Tannhäuser, and she's returning to the great hall where they have so many lovely memories, and ultimately the hall where he left her. So it's kind of a cathartic moment for her, but ultimately a joyous one.
To wait to the last or to start at the beginning?
I'm not sure.
Both are difficult. Because, of course, our job when we start at the last is we have to stay awake. We have to stay up. To be able to run into that aria head on is just wonderful. So I couldn't be more pleased with what you did. And didn't she seem like a little girl? A 15-year-old? Oh my God, this hall, oh my God, my love. That's what you did. And you made me feel, and I can't tell you how many times I've done this, and how many times I've seen it with Riesenig, and who was magnificent. You made me feel that way. So, I really have very little to say on that. Try, and again, this is just, you were warming up again. So with all respect, try and remember that when we're singing some of these low notes, we are really going to sing them over a full orchestra. Now, yes, in theory, the conductor should say, shh, but orchestras tend not to listen to conductors. Zubin Mehta once said, if you can't hear John West singing this, you're playing too loud. And Philip, the horn player back there, said to Zubin, you're assuming that we can play softer and that we want to. That's the New York Philharmonic. So there's a reality. So I could use a little bit more chest voice. Sei mir. See? So we don't have to be at the top volume, but I need some chest there. Okay. It's to sei mir. So for recording, this is another thing that's hurt our business, is the recording. Because when you have a voice like this, which is a possible Flagstadt voice in the making, you have too much sound for even the best mics. And the best mics still are Neumann mics. And yet they won't take this swamping sound. Riesenig was living proof. They did not give her a career because it swamped the mic. They didn't give a recording career. So she never made, but Birgit, that has this wonderful, clear, clarion, coloratura, Helden soprano voice, was recorded all the time because it came through greatly on the mic. So if you were using a mic, I'd say sure, sei mir, but you're not. I'm training you for an opera house. So let's go back. Let's see. This was all very good. I was very pleased with all that. Geliebter Raum, that was nice. I really liked the way I believe you were saying. This is lovely. A little bit more diction. Da mir aus dir geschieden. You're a little light on the diction sometimes. Die Öd erscheinst du mir. Yeah. Zug. Not smoke. See, there's no engagement with your full instrument. Zug aus. Yeah. So let that chest that I'm trying to get you to feel a little bit more, let that come into your voice. It's the only thing that carries in the opera house. It's the only way we have any impact. And again, today's sopranos, they don't sing with any chest. It's like doesn't exist. And if they do, it's muddled and thick and heavy, and you can't hear it. Okay? So why don't we try it from Da aus der Geschichte? Yeah.
Da aus mir geschieden, wie erschienst du mir.
Right there. Wie she said the up with the V. Don't sing the V, because it doesn't, our ears hear that as a change in line and a change in place. We may not understand that, and we may not even hear it that well, except we react to it.
Okay, so connected.
Connect.
Okay.
Connect. What did Dame Eva Turner say? Match tones.
Okay.
So you see, if we, there's no matching there, really. Okay.
Du aus mir geschieden, wie erschienst du mir, aus
Now what are you saying there?
and out flew my,
And so what are the German words?
aus mir entfloh der.
That's what I didn't understand. I didn't get it entfloh at all.
Okay.
Entfloh! See, I need to hear that.
Okay.
Okay.
Aus mir? Aus mir entfloh.
Now put that O over. Flow! Cover that O. Cover. Flow.
Flow.
There, sing it just like that. Yes. That's it.
Die Freude zog aus dir.
Yes. The difference of night and day. Because see, here, but there in the opera house, that sounds the same. And that's why it's so important. Now, remember in German, we do have closed vowels. And the O, okay, Wohltat. You can't say Wohltat, that's completely wrong. And Germans will tell you, nein, Wohltat, Noto. So we begin to understand that. Now let's go on to the Sei mir gegrüßt. Okay? Excellent. Excellent. See, again, matching your voice. So this organ-like richness in your voice always gives us that organ-like richness. It doesn't always have to be loud, but it has to be the same quality of sound. Good. Excellent. So, well, I guess we should go back. We should go back to der dich und mich.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Und Vater.
Sorry.
See, chest voice, then we have what is called girare, where the voice, sei mir, which is particularly heard in the female voice. So we should hear chest, and then it turn over, which is what girare means, the turn. And then the great singers, Tebaldi, Callas, Tetrazzini, all of these phenomenal, you hear exactly the girare all the time. So, good, excellent, all right. Now, one more. Now you're a little bit more settled. Lower that high. you know, down to these abdominal muscles, and this feeling of this. You know, there's a wonderful, if you want to see how strong we need to support, there's on Google search, bring up Roberta Peters and Joseph Pilates, the original Pilates guy. And Roberta's laying down, and Joseph is standing on her diaphragm. And she did that on purpose. She did that on purpose to show how strong we have to be. Well, Myriam she has stood on my diaphragm, and I bounced her up to the, so it's something we do. We do. That's why it has to be strong. And so that feeling with you of get it low, get that, and then support. So how about, what would be the best thing for you? Sei mir gegrüßt?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why you got
No, for example, yeah, this, yeah. Sei mir gegrüßt.
Oh, yes.
Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, and what?
Sei mir gegrüßt. Sei mir gegrüßt. Du, teure Herr. Sei mir gegrüßt.
That was so Now, you know, I mean, we're dealing in absolutes here. Of course, in the Opera House, Beverly Sills said I'm in good voice one day a year, and the rest I'm in mediocre to lousy, and I have to figure out how to get it good, where the audience expects it. So, nobody sings perfectly, and we should disabuse ourselves of that theory right away. That's another reason for the mediocre, safe performances we're getting, because everybody's supposed to sing textbook perfect. It doesn't exist. When you have singers that really sing out, there's going to be a note or two that's not perfect, and that's just the way it is. Tucker, I mean, you know, I studied with Tucker, and I can tell you that there were no nights when it didn't quite work right, and that's just the way it was. Jan Pierce, same thing. It's the way it is. And so we can't always expect ourselves to be perfect. It doesn't exist. And the worst thing we can do is to go for that. The worst thing we can do is say, oh, I'm sorry, which is why I don't allow in my studio, sorry. Sorry gets a demerit. And 3 demerits, you get a slap. Now we're going for Italian. This is the hardest thing for a German voice, a big whomping instrument to do like hers, because it lays differently. And the hardest thing for a German voice, and that's what we, basically all of us except Selene, have that German voice, to find the Italian line and to have it work right. And so we've been working, and you're doing a wonderful job. So have some fun. Just sit on that pace right away. Don't sneak into it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Let it be a little louder. It's going to be louder in your voice. Duh.
Yeah.
Okay? So don't be afraid.
My next piece is Pace, Pace mio Dio from Verdi's La Forza del Destino. And this centers around the character Leonora. She's been taken away from her lover and held up in a convent. And she is pleading with God for peace, which means a more permanent resolution in death. A very happy uplifting piece.
And if we were translating it to Yiddish, it would be Die Macht des Schicksals. Great. Great. No. That was wonderful. Here, you know where you aimed that? That's where you aimed the first note. Check. Put it right there.
Okay.
Okay, try it. Right. Just pop. Straight. Pop. There. That's it. Do it again. Now do it again. No, I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go
Oh,
on.
sorry.
Not my fault. Now, no. Check. And Italians hate diphthongs. And I still get a little che, which means you have to feel the roundness on That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. But if you don't trust that placement of that rounder tone has to be placed and has to be supported, then you can't do it. Okay? And so then it gets edgy, and it borders just on that little bit, and then it gets bright, and then it sounds like we're diphthong. Okay? So that was very good. Pace mio Dio. I love it. Pace mio Dio. Pace mio Dio. You had to girare like crazy. Beautiful. So that was excellent. I love that feeling. Cruz Ventura, that was nice. Pace, yeah. Good. When you did so you have to plan that out so that it stays in that rounder spot rather than if we get a little bit brassy, if we get a little bit bright, we immediately cut off our voice. Let's try that, if we may, from the mind of the event. Round. You want see, you have the courage to set the first note in and then go for it. Go with the first one. Okay. All right. Coraggio. Trust that it will. Trust that it will. It's getting better and better. Once more. Then it gets edgy and everything, and your neck begins to tight, and you wonder why you're getting tired. Okay. For us, as German singers singing Italian, we have to allow our voice to be full. And that means we may be 2 pounds of bologna in a 1 pound bag for some people. Too bad. You know, you don't want to hear us, then don't come to hear us. You know? wait until there's Italian. But otherwise, you're going to hear us, and we got some stuff. Good. And I loved what you did. Un delitto. We gotta remember also lieder. In Italian, all R's are voiced. So they need to be heard strongly. And then when they hit un delitto, there's a complete stop. It's the only time that in Italian we are allowed to be non legato. Un delitto. Only time. So maybe un delitto once more. Now, when you come to Alvaro, even more on the Alva, Alva. So I really get a full girare from chest to forehead. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Now come on, keep it. Yes. That is a perfect textbook demonstration of girare in the soprano voice. Then we get that chest, and then boom, it goes right over, and we hear the except that it doesn't sound like it does in men. It sounds wonderful in you because it gives us that jolt forward. Doing it in performance. But even Benemergino, he said, we don't know a role until we've performed it at least 17 times in public, and then we have a right to work on it and improve it. So that's how hard these roles are. They're not easy to do. So, was there any other stuff? Now, the finer time is maledizione, 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 maledizione. Okay? Once more on that. Now, don't give somebody. Ma chi giunge. Say, that's enough. It's the throwing of the voice. Ma chi giunge. There you are. Ma chi giunge. You know, we don't have to do the biggest thing on record. We have to act big while pulling back a little bit, and it gives us more interest. I mean, as opposed to singing on our capital. We're singing on our interest. Okay? Okay?
Ma chi giunge?
Ma. Ma chi giunge? Ma, but! Ma chi giunge?
Ma chi giunge?
Aspetta. Ma chi giunge?
Ma chi giunge?
That's it. Ma chi giunge?
Ma chi giunge? Chi proverà radice sopra loco? Maledizione.
Now wait, take it slower. Chi profanare ardisce il sacro loco. Okay? I'm not, because you're rushing it, and I don't understand all your words.
Okay.
There's no time we shouldn't understand words, ideally speaking. Okay? So take it a little slower, say them a little clearer.
Okay. Ma chi giunge? Chi profanare radice sopra loco? Maledizione. 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 Maledizione.
Well,
that you're all here. Before we continue, I just want to read some special thanks to those who made this evening possible. I want to thank my parents for offering up this home for this event. I want to thank Shaun, my brother, and Constance Vigneault, for all the way from France, and for their I want to thank Mrs. Sharon West for keeping up the home front in Utica, New York, while Jon is here.
And in general, putting up with this post.
I want to thank Enrique Chio for helping us with the chairs for today, and Alagad ni Maria Disciples of Mary Charity. I want to thank Texana McGillis for her help with the refreshments as well. All of these people, and Christopher Boe, last but not least, Sarah's boyfriend, who was just instrumental these past 2 days to helping put everything together. You all have made this event a success that it has been, and I am eternally grateful and indebted. Now, before we go on to our question and answer session, I just want to tell all of you that if you liked this evening, and if you want to support the future of this program, we're just going to pass around a little basket, and if you should feel so inclined to donate a little bit for next year, we would be very grateful, because this is a program that we believe in. It can do a lot of good, and so any help that we can get, we'd be very appreciative.
Or, if you don't feel that tonight is the right night,
yes, we're starting a Kickstarter.
Anytime throughout the year, making out the check and sending it would be very, very helpful.
We'll be starting a Kickstarter campaign online, and we can send that all out to you, so thanks a lot. So now, the question and answer session. There are not many rules. We're all here for questions. The only rule is just make it clear who you're directing the question to. Now, go!
Yeah.
Really?
Everything is clear as mud?
Okay, so I have a question to the four of you, not the gentlemen. What changed for you this week so far?
Good, excellent question.
I personally have, I used to use a lot of self-deprecative talk, and Jon has really instilled in me that I can't talk that way. I really have to believe in myself, and I think that's one of the biggest things from here is that, if I don't believe in myself, who will, right? And I think that's a great lesson I'm going to take away from here.
I have the same. I think mine is the same as Nan's. Even more so, I think, because Oscar can fall. I had a little bit of a breakdown on Tuesday, and it really made me question whether I believed in myself or not. And it's a thing, it opened my mind. It was like very self-reflective, and it's definitely something I want to continue working on in order to progress, because I want to keep singing better. I want to do better than I was today, and I will be. Because I believe in myself, and I'm not self-deprecating. Shaun next.
I constantly deal with the whole aspect of, am I even worthy to be singing this rep? There's so many great people who came before me. What do I have to, offer to this? So that's still a question that I still have yet to answer. However, instead of singing Blastissimo all the time, which I thought was required with Siegfried, with Tristan, I'm now having to readjust and figure out how to sing beautifully Tristan, instead of just making it anger and making it as drama-filled as possible vocally, and then having nothing left for the second act even. So, I think that's for me.
For me, it's very confusing nowadays for a young singer. One often lacks direction. As Jon mentioned, in conservatories, the voice is not taught properly. there's this wonderful craft of opera that was handed from master to student for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now that process has been interrupted. So young singers don't even recognize what the right sound that's the most beautiful, the most glorious, the most thrilling, because there's a visceral thrill in opera when the sound just envelops you. We've lost that understanding. With Jon, I'm seeing the way, finally. I'm understanding what kind of sound I want to make so that the beauty of opera, the passion in opera, can be represented. That, and also learning the Cotoni method, which is the Einheit between what you have musically and what you have physically all together. That's the most important thing that I've learned from Jon. And lastly, he's taught me by example. Because he's lived all this, he's performed with the greatest heart everything that he does. Just watching him tells me exactly what I need to do to be not only a great singer, but hopefully one day a great artist like him.
What else? Yes.
Do you have to learn German before you start singing the song?
It always helps to learn the language so you can get to the bathroom, get your money, and find your way back to the hotel. However, that said, there are many singers who can do that and who have learned the language but have terrible pronunciation, and even famous singers. And that is the problem. So you do have to know what you're saying and have an emotional response to it, what is being said to you. But you have to, most importantly, pronounce it correctly with the good rhythm of the language. So if you can get in a taxi cab in any country and start talking for 5 minutes and then say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't speak that much German, I have to switch to English, and they say, oh my goodness, I thought you were born here. That's when you know you have the language code for singing. So yes, if you can do both, if you're smart enough and trained enough from early on to do both, then would be the best. But of the two, you have to know the dialect properly.
I have a question. You talked about the supporting, because I'm not a singer, supporting sound from here. How do you do
It is oftentimes people talk about support from the diaphragm. That's actually not correct. The diaphragm is an autonomous organ that works off the nervous system when we take a breath. So it works all by itself, and it doesn't have anything to do with air support. What does is the intercostal muscles and the abdomen muscles down to the pelvic floor. So if you think about it, when you see a good breath, it's then we let a little out, and that's from the position we sing. So we still are very, very tight. You see? Strong. Tight is absolutely the wrong word. Strong. And that's where we go from. So that's what support is. And how much do we need of it at any given time? Sometimes we don't need much at all. Sometimes we're singing mezza voce and it's airy-fairy, and we hardly need, and then other times we need a lot.
Thank you.
And then can you say a little more again about coming from the back of your throat versus from the front?
The problem with that theory of it comes from the front is then the vocal cords would be right here. They are not. The vocal cords are here. So if that is the case, which it is, then once they vibrate and that sound comes out, we have to get rid of all this area in the soft palate, which is called the velum. We have to part it, like the Red Sea.
Feel it open.
So it's like that beginning of a yawn.
Yeah.
And you see, then we throw the voice in release. Kush, kush! Cattle, come! Din, din, butchie! Which is why one of the scenes from Mr. Opera, he says there's more good opera singing going on farms than in the opera house. And that happens to be the case because of our throwing the voice. Again, it's a matter of you sing like you speak. If you're throwing the voice forward, then you sing. Then you can go out and in and out. In and out. But it's from here. Opening the throat like a cannon shot. The tube of the cannon has to be open or the shot's not going to come out. That's it. It's really that simple. And those, going back, and so we're taking about the diaphragm. Well, babies have been doing it for years. And they can do it all night long. Why? Because they support. And so you see, we have done things all of our youth, but we've done them separately. The crying, the shouting, so somebody can be heard across the street, and all of these things. And then we're told, oh, no, children don't do this, good adults don't do this, and so we forget. And then we have to pay somebody to tell us to put it together. and walk that tightrope. Because it is a balance beam. Every time we get on, we have to balance this, and this embouchure thing that makes the diction of this vertigo. And that's a balance. And we can get off that balance like that. The wrong repertoire. We don't feel good that day. We get a little sore throat. We're just in a plain bad mood. And we don't feel like singing very well. And so this is another thing young singers don't understand. This is like training for the Olympics. You just can't have a lesson 1 hour a week and expect you to do anything for years. It's not going to happen. It has to be regular. You have to work regularly, and you have to stay on top of this condition and this balance. So, yes?
I'm curious because it sounds like a large part of doing German singing is singing very loudly, but also the technique is very important.
Now you just heard him sing soft.
Oh, that too. The thing I'm thinking of as a speech pathologist is how do you guard against vocal abuse? Getting vocal nodules and all that stuff, because that is an occupational hazard for singers. Anyone who uses their voice a lot.
You have to, as a speech pathologist, you must know then that the ideal usage of the voice is only 3 hours a day. Speech, talking, singing. So you have to limit what, for instance, we call it opera hell week. When some people call us and we are doing all the rehearsals, we say, I'm in opera hell week, I'll get back to you as soon as I can, which will be at least a week later from now. See? So you don't use your voice, you don't get on Messenger and talk crazy, you have to get your sleep, and then you have to live within your means, just like finances. So if this is your loudest, back up 1 and say, okay, I'm going to live 1 less. So that's going to come back and never be that loud, nor I'm going to sing softer that makes my voice tense. And then you'll sing forever. I've been singing in the public since I was 14 years old. I'm 67. And I just quit when I was 62, 63. So, if you do it right, and you actually are what you say you are, which is called Fach. So if you belong in that Fach, then you will not hurt yourself if you learn those rules. Anybody else want to field that question?
I think it relates to the abdominal, the way you breathe when you sing. You're not going to develop nodules if you're singing on your breath, not pushing the sound out, which I did a little bit tonight because I was nervous, but I didn't hurt myself. So.
No, of course not. And there's a term for that, which we use mostly Italian terms, called sul fiato. But occasionally we use a German like Fach.
I also wanted to say that, people might be thinking of pop singers, like Adele, who develop nodules after touring. But there's a reason for that, because she sings with a raised larynx. So she'll go, oh, like that all day long, right? And the technique...
Amen.
The technique for opera singing is completely different and designed for you to be a supreme human being, standing before an orchestra, huge for Wagner, absolutely immense. I recognize it, larger than for Rossini that I sang, and the way that the hall is designed, everything, and the technique with an open throat is designed so that you will not harm yourself if you have a good technique.
And that only comes from a good teacher.
Right.
Because so many of us teach us to sing, just sing loud! And that does nothing for you. I've spent most of my life singing loud. I finally have somebody who's taught me how to actually sing properly for the voice that I have.
Right.
I have a question. I enjoyed listening to his critique of your singing and pointing out, try this, that. How do you react to that? Is that something that you sort of dread, or is it?
Depends on what he says.
So I wanted to direct the question to you.
Oh, okay. That's what I just said. It depends on what he says, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, when I first started singing Du Bist der Lenz, I knew it wasn't like where it needed to be, and we just talked about rounding the vowel. I just wasn't doing it. I don't know. Yeah.
And also the same question to you.
Well, for me, that's why I'm here. Because actually, the more visceral it is, the more honest to goodness, this is what you're doing wrong. I need this certain vowel shaped a certain way. That's why I'm here. I need to know exactly what I'm doing wrong, especially in a performance setting, because honestly, my worst time is in an audition. Because if there are two people in a room, I just push like none other. He's here tonight to remind me to not push, and instead to pull it back, to not give it 100%, but maybe give it 80% and 100%, vowel or embouchure modulation and everything. Make sure everything is working. Just pull it back just a hair. But singing in front of a small, intimate group like this terrifies the heck out of me. Get me in front of 30,000 people, I'm right at home. So honestly, for this, that's why.
Now, what's funny to me is this is a friendly crowd. I mean, they're handpicked to come here.
That's what Jon used.
We are honored. I thought he was probably the hardest on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
What?
Then we all never here, but I think an important thing to keep in mind is that every critique that comes, at least from Jon and some other teachers, comes from a place of love and support. He's passing the buck to us. He wants to see us succeed and have a long career with a healthy voice. And obviously, he believes in us to invite us here for this week of intensive study. So I would gladly take it. I mean, honestly, you need to take everything with a grain of salt, but everything has worked. So I have full trust in him, and I've known him for maybe a few days.
The thing that I've always said at the beginning of any lesson is, this is not brain surgery. No one's going to die if you make a mistake. So this is something we have to have a perspective on. We only care amongst ourselves that it's this good. Nobody else does, not really, and nobody else knows. So it's our work, it's our thing. Cosa nostra.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about in general about what you all have said in regards to the commentaries that Shaun has done. He does it with such finesse and such love and such encouragement, because in every case he's always saying, "Oh, you were so good here and so good there," and 3/4 of it is, "You're so good," and maybe 1/4 of it is a little correction here and there. It's not even that, "Oh, you grossly misunderstood this terrifically." I think he's doing a super job of guiding you along.
I think we all think that. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think that. It's a wonderful teacher.
And I can hear it in his voice, and I can see it in your reactions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question for Commendatore.
Commendatore.
First of all, let me tell you, you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
With this young singer, and that means the opera is there. And one thing is, which I told you, that the voice is the only instrument that God created, so it's a gift, and you must use it wisely. But going back to the opera now, you mentioned that Julius Patzak, so when you did your singing, who do you think was one of the best Heldentenors in that area? Because I think you mentioned to me that James King was,
There, it's like, what do you expect? I'm going to say me. But if you eliminate me, then I'd have to say Vickers in some areas, King in some areas, Melchior in his first 15 years before his voice became baritone again. I mean, there's nobody that sang Siegfried like Melchior in his first 15 years. So those were all great. They were all great. And every one of them, no one, including me, did it perfectly. So we all added to each other. We all learned from each other. And that's what the passing of the buck is about. I took it from everything, and now I'm trying to pass it to Shaun, to Clay Hilly, to Ray. And that's what I'm trying to do now.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you. Yes.
For the young artists, who was the opera star that you really loved that made you want to sing opera, or was it just opera in general, the passion of it all?
It changes over time when you learn to sing versus like before.
Okay.
One of my biggest influences, the reason I got an opera was Christine Gerke's Electra in Detroit, and I'm a big Sandro Radvanovsky fan as well. And Brianna Freddy.
Actually, one of the biggest motivators for me is I loved watching, and I don't like her anymore. I'm sure you'll be like, but I loved Waltraud Meyer as Isolde in John's production with her in Germany. You can watch it on YouTube. I could watch it over and over again because she looks so beautiful. Now listening to it, I don't like the way she sounded. I'd much rather listen to Birgit Nielsen or Flogshot.
Yeah.
But that really got me into it. It is gorgeous music. And you, I love when she leaves the stage and you look like you're so in love with her. And I can't even believe that was you. I watched that video like 10 years ago. Shaun told me about this program and I had to apply when I found out. Shaun also told me about the program. It's an amazing opportunity to sing with someone so well versed and so talented.
So,
your turn.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, for me it was, I've had music in my house ever since I was little. Obviously my father's a pianist, but even in the womb my mother was playing recordings, but not only opera, just orchestral violin, because I'm also a violinist. But what made me fall in love with opera is that my older sister is 2 years older than me and now studying at the Aspen Festival. She did not like cartoons very much. She liked watching film productions of opera. That was her thing at 4 years old. And so I think that as the younger sister, and I did everything that she said I should do, of course, as a younger sister does, I must have watched the Cornell version of The Marriage of Figaro 300 times in early childhood. And The Magic Flute that's directed by Ingmar Bergman, also just as frequently. And sometimes, I remember, we would start in the morning, we'd watch it, we'd take a play break in the afternoon, and then we'd do it again in the evening. So that's when I knew, I had to do this.
How did you do that?
It was only when I was 13 that I knew that maybe I could, and that's been the greatest joy that I could ever imagine or even try to explain.
I've been waiting for this question.
Yes, answer to this question.
I hated opera for a number of years until I heard Metallica. I'm a huge metalhead until I heard Metallica play with the San Francisco Symphony. It introduced me to an operatic style to metal that I'd never heard before. Because it added orchestration to my greatest songs, the songs I love the most. Especially Nothing Else Matters. It's just absolutely glorious. That in turn, my brother introduced me, long rest his soul, but my brother introduced me to the German band Rammstein, which got me into...
Go to karaoke with this guy.
And I started listening to Wagner, and I realized that one of my favorite animated shows from the 90s was Batman the Animated Series, and it uses the same exact resolve and chord progression that is in Wagner's Faust. So, long story short, I finally fell in love with opera when I looked at my choir director in high school, and I said, hey, you know, what do you think about me getting my first opera gig before I go into college? And he said, good luck. I did not fall in love with opera until that following year when I did chorus, a ghost chorus for Der Fliegende Holländer, the Flying Dutchman. And then I went into college the following year. But that's when I absolutely fell in love with the power, the visceral power of opera, and especially of Wagner. There's that wall of sound, but there's also that sweet gentleness. And I quote Jamie Baird when she said, going to experience Metallica live. There's nothing like it. Sorry for the long
So different.
Alright, anything else? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I expected this evening to be a bit of an extension of the master's class. And so I would expect the master, therefore, to help, because he loves all three of you, to help you do your best. And so that's the way I looked at it. I didn't look at it as, oh my gosh, he's criticizing whatever. I looked at it as, he cares enough about you that he wants you to sound the best that he knows you can.
That's a great teacher.
Yeah.
Now, if you want hard teaching, go into the Russian school of piano and then, undergo a grueling masterclass from those professors. That's music making divorced from its context and its humanity. So this is the complete opposite. This is how music making should be and how the art of transmission should be.
Well,
A question.
Yes.
Stand up.
Yes.
Now we can see.
Before a performance, how do you get over your nerves?
Good question.
Drink scotch. No.
Good question. No. Wait. Come on.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
I listen to my favorite music, and I trust that I've prepared enough in the process that I can give my best performance and not have a panic attack before every performance. Maybe opening night. That's about it. Yeah, my favorite music.
Sarah?
I'm working on that technique. Some crazy rituals that don't really do anything, but I'm still trying. I don't know. If you bite your tongue, that makes saliva. I bite down hard. Because when you get nervous, it does the opposite effect that you want. You can't take a deep breath. Anyone who's nervous, imagine the physical feeling of it. You can't take a deep breath, your larynx goes up, and not only that, your mouth gets dry. And you notice it more, especially if you're a singer. So
I'm gonna also chime in and say it's what Nan, being prepared, knowing that you know your work, but it's also loving your audience.
Yeah.
It's loving people. And if you really see each other as friends, then I know you want me to do well. I know that, really. And although I feel a little nervous because I'm not sure, none of us are ever sure. Pavarotti said it himself. Well, do you know where this high note's going to come tonight? Not really.
Yeah.
None of us can bet our lives on that it will be there that night at any given time, because it's so dependent on our bodies. But past that, we try. And some nights it'll be good, and some nights it won't be quite as good. And some, once in a blue moon, it may be actually bad. But we know that if you love us, and we love you, you will forgive us. And that's what takes the nerves away.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, Claire, first of all, I want to tell everybody that I know why the reason why Claire is asking this question is because recently I coached her to do something very, very brave. She cantored a whole mass by herself for her grandmother. Funeral.
Yeah, bravo.
Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to say that, Pavarotti, the great Italian tenor, he was so scared that he had to put a coin in his shoe for good luck, always before a performance, so he wouldn't go on. And the other great Italian tenor, Corelli, had to be kicked on stage. Literally kicked. But the point is that what one should do is remember, why are we doing this? Nobody's, as John says, his mother used to tell him, nobody, I'm not forcing you to do this, right?
Nobody's forcing me to do this.
Yeah. So you're doing it to make people happy, period. So you be happy, because you're giving a gift to other people. Mistakes don't matter. What matters is the gift that you're giving to make people happy.
Good question.
Well, anything else from anybody? No? Well, thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you all for coming.
you all.
Sandy's wonderful.